Did Rondo #9 really sneak an RPG into Chicago? How did a viral photo of him posing with a literal rocket launcher become one of the most insane moments in drill rap history?
We got rapper Rondo #9, who has posted up his new Christmas toy on Instagram.
And why are even street-certified rappers afraid to mention his name?
It sounds like you're really scared of offending Rondo for some reason.
Terrified.
From his deadly street reputation to his 39-year prison sentence, this is the wild story of how Rondo #9 went from an up-and-coming rapper to one of Chicago's most feared figures.
It was a video that went viral years and years ago. I don't know if nobody asked you about this, but I'm gonna ask you about this. Like the rocket launcher that Rondo #9 had posted years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was to folks, like, he posted rocket launcher, G? Like, when you first seen that, what was your thought?
Rondo #9, born Clint Massey on February 18th, 1997, wasn't just another rapper in Chicago's drill scene. He was one of its most notorious figures. Affiliated with the 600 set of the Black Disciples, he came up alongside names like Lil Durk and Chief Keef. Known for his raw street presence and violent lyrics that weren't just for show. But when a picture surfaced of Rondo holding an RPG, yes, a literal rocket-propelled grenade launcher, even the streets took a step back. It wasn't just another flex. It was a sign of how deep he was in the trenches.
That bitch went viral. They got real though. They tried to sell me all type of
rocket launcher, G?
Grenades, rocket launchers.
You see, RPGs aren't something you pick up from a gun store. They are military weapons designed for war. How did Rondo get his hands on one? And what made him think posing with it was a good idea? But that was only the beginning, because Rondo #9 wasn't just flexing heavy artillery. He was living the life he rapped about. And that's what got him locked up for 39 years. To understand how Rondo #9 got to this point, we need to go back to the rise of Chicago drill music in the early 2010s. The city was already infamous for its gang violence, and drill music became the soundtrack to the streets. Rondo quickly gained attention for his aggressive delivery and violent lyrics. Songs like Hang With Me and Life of a Savage weren't just hits. They were warnings. His music videos often featured him and his crew flashing guns, smoking, and throwing up gang signs. But it wasn't just music. Rondo was deeply involved in the streets. His set, 600, was locked in a deadly war with rival factions like 051 Young Money and STL/EBT. The violence wasn't just in the lyrics. It was real life. And then came the RPG incident. Back in the day, Rondo was making waves on Instagram by posting a bunch of wild photos. One in particular stood out. It showed him holding what looked like a rocket launcher. Yeah, you heard that right. Not a handgun, not an AK, but a full-on bazooka. Naturally, this kind of image stirred up a lot of attention, not just from fans and regular people online, but also from the government. The police were watching closely because by that time, Chicago had become infamous for gang violence, and law enforcement had started monitoring social media for any signs of illegal weapons. In fact, police had already been building a huge database of photos featuring Chicago rappers flashing exotic firearms. We're talking about everything from Tommy guns to semi-automatic rifles, and now a literal anti-tank rocket launcher in Rondo's hands. This growing concern led the police to form a special unit that focused entirely on social media surveillance. They were using artificial intelligence to track gang codes and any potential threats before things got violent in real life. But despite these efforts, Chicago's MDR rate kept climbing, with bodies dropping almost daily in certain high-risk areas, which cops referred to as red zones. You might be wondering, how does someone in the US even get their hands on a rocket launcher? Well, surprisingly, it's not that difficult.
When you sign up for the Army and the little stores, they got them in there, the props. Them be props. I got a picture like that.
The one Rondo was holding was actually an AT-4, a single-use anti-tank weapon designed in Sweden but widely used by the US military. It was built to help soldiers destroy armored vehicles and fortifications, especially in war zones like Afghanistan. What made the AT-4 so popular with the military was how simple it was to use. You just take it out of the package, look through the sights, switch the safety off, pull the trigger, and boom, whatever's in front of you is gone. However, there was one catch. The AT-4 was disposable. You could only fire one shot, and after that, the launcher was basically useless. That made it lightweight and mobile, but also not reusable, which is why the military had so many of them. They were cheap too. Believe it or not, you could buy one for around $1,500. And here's the crazy part. You can actually legally buy a rocket launcher in the US without even going through a background check. Yes, really. However, the actual rocket, the part that explodes, is a whole different story. Each projectile is considered a destructive device by the ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. To legally own one, you'd need to get a special tax stamp, which costs $200 and is extremely hard to obtain. Plus, there's usually a 4 to 12 month waiting period, meaning it's nearly impossible for the average person to legally get their hands on an operational rocket launcher. When law enforcement saw Rondo flexing with the AT-4 in those viral photos, they weren't about to ignore it. They quickly sent out bulletins to alert the neighborhood and put together a plan to track him down. At a time, Rondo wasn't too happy about all the attention. He jumped on his socials venting about how people were blowing up his spot and questioning why everyone was making a big deal out of it. He even sarcastically tweeted something like, "Who the hell would actually use a rocket launcher?" As if people were overreacting. But let's be real, if you post a picture of yourself holding a bazooka, what do you expect? Shortly after, Rondo deleted the photo, probably realizing it wasn't worth the heat. But then things got even more interesting. A different Chicago rapper, P. Rico, posted his own photo on Instagram of a rocket launcher casually leaning against his door. Nobody knows if it was the same one Rondo had, but one thing was clear. Someone in Chicago had a serious plug for these weapons. Now, let's be honest, was Rondo really planning to use a rocket launcher in the streets? Probably not. In fact, even if he wanted to, it would have been pretty useless in a regular shootout. Think about it. Most people who carry guns in the US barely know how to aim, let alone handle something as serious as an AT-4. You can't exactly pull up on an enemy and fire a bazooka in the middle of Chicago. It's not Call of Duty, it's real life. Unless he was trying to blow up a building or a car. Having a rocket launcher in a city setting was more of a ridiculous flex than a practical weapon. Most likely, the AT-4 was just a prop for clout. Maybe it was non-functional, maybe it was just a shell with no explosive inside. Who knows? What we do know is that it definitely got people talking. At the end of the day, Rondo was making music, and controversy sells. His song Taliban was already gaining traction, and a photo like that just added to the image he was building. It was the perfect promo stunt. It got picked up by blogs, social media, and even mainstream news outlets. Whether it was real or fake, the buzz around it helped boost his music career at the time.
I'm with the gang and you can't hang 'cause they don't around.
Still, considering how much law enforcement was already watching rappers in Chicago, flexing with a rocket launcher probably wasn't the smartest move. It's one thing to hold an illegal handgun, it's another thing entirely to be seen with a weapon of war. But while the RPG photo added to his legend, what happened next sealed his fate forever. In 2013, Rondo number 9 was making a name for himself in Chicago's drill music scene. He was part of the 600 crew, closely linked to Chief Keef and Lil Durk. His music was starting to take off, and many people thought he had a real chance at success. But everything changed on September 26, 2013, when his best friend L.A. Capone was shot and offed outside a recording studio. L.A. was still alive when the ambulance arrived, but he lost too much blood and didn't make it. L.A. Capone's death hit Rondo hard. The two were extremely close, and L.A. was the one who encouraged Rondo to take rap seriously. Losing him wasn't just losing a friend, it was losing someone who believed in him. To cope, Rondo poured his energy into his music, dropping a mixtape called Real Ninja for Life 2, featuring artists like Fredo Santana and even some verses from L.A. Capone.
I'm marching with 6 and a lot of lying, man.
The project showed Rondo's potential, but unfortunately, it would be his last. Not long after the release, Rondo's life took a turn for the worse. On February 21st, 2014, Rondo and some of his 600 crew members went to a party at the Wentworth Gardens housing projects, an area controlled by a rival gang. Rondo wasn't alone. He was with well-known figures from Chicago's drill scene, including K-Dye, Tay600, Lil Boo, and D-Rose. They also had some women with them. At some point, most of the guys left the party, but Tay600 stayed behind with the women. Then things got messy. A fight broke out over the music that was playing, and someone pulled out a gun and fired a shot into the air. No one was hit, but Tay 600 called Rondo and Sadai to tell them what had happened. They met up at a nearby Wendy's and decided to go back to the area to see what was going on. As they drove through, they spotted a car parked on the side of the road. Inside was a cab driver named Javon Boyd, who had been called to pick someone up from the party. What happened next changed everything. According to police, Rondo and Sadai pulled up next to Boyd's car, asked him if he was from the area, and then shot him 7 times before driving off. Boyd was left bleeding in his car and later died from his injuries. The police started investigating, and it didn't take long for them to link Rondo and Kaudai to the crime. They were arrested soon after, with Rondo's bail set at $2 million. He and Sadai sat in Cook County Jail for over 2 years while waiting for their trial. And they both claimed they were innocent, but the evidence against them was strong. First, the entire shooting was caught on surveillance cameras. Second, Sadai's DNA was found on Boyd's car. Third, witnesses identified Rondo and Kadai as the shooters. And to make things worse, Sadai dropped his phone at the crime scene, which gave police even more proof. 2 women who were with them that night also testified in court, saying that Rondo and Kadai were responsible for the ME-search. During the case, rumors started spreading that Tay 600 had snitched on Sadai. At the time, Tay was fighting his own gun charge, and after Rondo and Kadai were convicted, he disappeared for a while. Members of 600, like 600 Breezy and Edai, Sadai's brother, claimed they saw paperwork proving Tay 600 cooperated with the police. However, this turned out to be false. Years later, official documents confirmed that Tay 600 never snitched. But by then, his reputation had already been destroyed. He was no longer welcome in 600. Despite all their efforts to fight the case, Rondo and Sadai were both found guilty of Javon Boyd's MDR. Rondo also got an extra charge for carrying a gun that night. While that could have added several more years to his sentence, it only added 1. In the end, Rondo was sentenced to 39 years in prison, and Kadai got 38 years. Both of them have continued to claim they are innocent and have tried multiple times to appeal their convictions. Kadai's lawyers argued that the prosecutors didn't prove beyond a doubt that he was guilty of first-degree MDR, saying the motive didn't make sense. Rondo, on the other hand, blamed his lawyers for not questioning whether Sadai acted alone. Some people took this as Rondo throwing Sadai under the bus, sparking even more controversy. However, at the end of the day, the evidence was too strong. Both Rondo and Say's appeals were denied, and they are likely going to serve out their full sentences. What started as a promising music career for Rondo No. 9 turned into a tragedy, proving once again how fast things can spiral out of control in the streets of Chicago. But even behind bars, Rondo wasn't done making headlines. Apparently, Rondo No. 9 got into multiple fights in prison.
You mentioned you ran into Rondo No. 9 in jail.
They jumped on us though. They ain't want to fight one-on-one.
But things got even crazier when rumors surfaced that Rondo was hanging out with Oral 51 Lil Mick, the man convicted of K-ing his close friend La Capone. This shocked a lot of people since 051 and 600 were bitter enemies, but in jail, alliances changed fast. Meanwhile, outside of prison, rappers like FYBJ Maine admitted they wouldn't dare speak on Rondo.
It sounds like you're really scared of offending Rondo for some reason.
Terrified.
Well, that says a lot about his reputation. As of now, Rondo No. 9 is still serving his 39-year sentence. His earliest possible release date is 2053, meaning he'll be in his mid-50s if he ever gets out. Lil Durk and others have occasionally spoken about trying to help him appeal his case. In fact, Lil Durk discussed his case in a 2018 interview with Billboard, saying that Rondo may be released from prison on appeal in the near future. "I want to set up a good future for Rondo No. 9, Durk said when asked about his plans for his label, Only the Family Entertainment. "We've been back and forth with lawyers on his appeal, and it's looking really good. He's gonna get out soon." But as the years pass, the reality of Rondo No. 9's situation remains unchanged. Despite Lil Durk's optimism in 2018, no major breakthroughs have surfaced in his appeal, and he continues to serve out his sentence with little sign of an early release. While some still hold out hope that he could return to the streets one day, the harsh truth is that the system rarely grants second chances in cases like his. At one point, Rondo No. 9 was on the verge of becoming a major name in drill music, but his choices led him down a path that even his talent couldn't save him from. Whether his story serves as a cautionary tale or a testament to the life he chose depends on how you look at it. But one thing is for sure, he didn't just rap about the streets. He lived them, and now he's paying the price.